How did people without modern technology, without central heating, without synthetic insulation, survive winters that dropped to minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit? Outside, the world is ending. The temperature has dropped to 40 below. Wind screams across the plains at 60 miles an hour. Snow has been falling for 3 days. There is no furnace, there is no space heater, there's no insulation in the walls. There is only canvas, or rather, buffalo hide, and fire. Inside, a family huddles. Children sleep. Elders tend the flames. The air is warm enough that they can remove their outer furs. They are comfortable. They are alive. This is the story of how they did it. How generations of indigenous peoples across North America developed technologies so elegant, so perfectly adapted to their environment, that they could sleep soundly through storms that would kill a modern person in hours. Long before central heating, before fleece, before emergency blankets, they had something better: knowledge. To understand the genius of their solutions, you must first understand the enemy: cold itself. The human body is a tropical creature. We evolved on the savannas of Africa, where the biggest problem was heat, not cold. Our bodies are designed to maintain a core temperature of 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, and they will fight desperately to keep it there. When exposed to extreme cold, the body does 3 things. First, it constricts blood vessels in the extremities, fingers, toes, nose, ears, to preserve warm blood for the vital organs. This is why frostbite hits fingers first. Second, it shivers. Muscles contract rapidly to generate heat, burning enormous calories. Third, if all else fails, it begins to shut down non-essential systems. The problem is physics. Heat moves from warmer to colder areas. Your warm body, surrounded by minus 40-degree air, loses heat at an astonishing rate. Without protection, hypothermia sets in within minutes. Death follows within hours. Now imagine you have no polypropylene base layers, no down jackets, no insulated boots, no propane heaters, no electricity. Nothing but what you can make from animals, plants, and stone. The question isn't how they survived. The question is how they thrived. Let's start with the most visible symbol of Plains Indian life: the teepee. At first glance, it seems absurd. A cone of animal hides, open at the top with a fire inside. Surely all that warm air just rises up and out the smoke flaps, right? Surely you'd freeze. Wrong. The teepee is a masterpiece of thermodynamic engineering. First, the materials. A traditional teepee was made from buffalo hide, specifically from mature cow hides in late fall or winter when the fur was thickest. A single teepee required 10 to 20 hides, carefully tanned, smoke-cured to make them waterproof, and sewn together with sinew. The result was a material that was windproof, waterproof, and surprisingly insulating. It breathed, allowing moisture from breathing and cooking to escape, while trapping a layer of still air against the interior lining. Because here's the secret most people don't know: the teepee had a lining. Inside the outer hide covering, the occupants would hang an additional layer of skins or cloth, creating an air gap of several inches. Warm air from the fire would rise, but instead of escaping directly out the top, it would be trapped behind this lining, creating a pocket of warmth that insulated the living space. The smoke flaps, carefully positioned based on wind direction, created negative pressure that drew smoke up and out while actually helping to circulate warm air downward. The fire itself was carefully managed, not a roaring blaze that would consume too much fuel and create dangerous sparks, but a small, steady flame fed with dry wood that produced maximum heat with minimum smoke. The fire was placed slightly back from center, with a reflecting screen of hides behind it to direct heat forward into the living space. And the floor, covered with layers of buffalo robes and furs, sometimes over a bed of springy branches. People slept with their feet toward the fire, often in groups, sharing body heat. Children slept between parents. Elders were given the warmest spots. The result, when it was -40 outside, it could be 60 or 70 degrees inside near the fire, and still above freezing at the edges of the teepee. People slept comfortably in what amounted to a sophisticated, mobile, all-natural heating system. But shelter was only half the equation. To hunt, to gather water, to tend to animals, people had to go outside. And for that, they needed clothing that no modern synthetic has ever fully replicated. The principle was simple. Wear the animal, not just its hide, but everything that made that animal survive the same winter. Take the classic Inuit parka, made from caribou skin, specifically from caribou killed in autumn when their coats were thickest. Caribou hair is unique. Each hair is hollow. Under a microscope, it looks like a tiny tube of air. This gives caribou fur incredible insulating properties, trapping warmth while remaining lightweight. A caribou parka weighs almost nothing compared to a modern winter coat, yet it can keep a person warm at -50 degrees. But one parka wasn't enough. Traditional Arctic clothing used a layering system that would impress any mountaineer. An inner layer of lightweight caribou skin with the hair turned inward against the skin, and an outer layer with the hair facing outward. The trapped air between the layers created insulation that modern expedition gear still struggles to match. Boots were made from sealskin or caribou leg skins, carefully shaped, stuffed with dry grass or fur for additional insulation. Mittens were essential. Fingers together generate more warmth than fingers separate. And everything was designed with one principle: no exposed skin. Look at photographs of traditional Inuit or Plains people in winter. You see almost no skin at all. Faces are framed in fur hoods that create a warm pocket of breath air. The design is so effective that modern cold weather gear still uses the same principle. The ruff of fur around a parka hood is not decorative. It creates turbulence that prevents wind from entering and traps warm air. But here's what's truly remarkable. All of this was made with stone tools, bone needles, sinew thread, hours and hours of patient, skilled labor by women whose expertise was as refined as any engineers. A well-made pair of moccasins or a carefully constructed parka wasn't just clothing, it was survival, stitched into every seam. Fire required fuel. In forested regions, this was straightforward. Dead wood could be gathered, though finding dry wood in snow was a skill in itself. But what about the Great Plains, where trees were scarce? What about the Arctic, where nothing grows at all? The answer was ingenuity. On the plains, buffalo didn't just provide hides and meat. Their droppings, buffalo chips, were gathered, dried, and burned. They produced a hot, long-lasting flame with little smoke. An entire fuel source, free for the taking, renewable every season. In the Arctic, where even buffalo chips didn't exist, people burned seal oil. Stone lamps carved from soapstone with a wick of moss or cotton grass burned steadily for hours, providing both light and heat. A single seal could provide weeks of fuel, and everywhere people planned. They didn't wait until winter to gather fuel. They spent the warm months stockpiling, drying, preparing. Wood was cached in strategic locations. Buffalo chips were gathered by the hundreds. Seal oil was rendered and stored in skin bags. This wasn't just survival. It was logistics, practiced at a level that would impress any modern supply chain manager. Perhaps the most important survival technology of all wasn't physical at all. It was social. No one survived a northern winter alone. It was impossible. The work was too great, the resources too scattered, the risks too high. Winter survival required community. Extended families lived together, often in multi-family lodges or clusters of teepees. They shared food, fuel, and labor. When a hunter was successful, the meat was distributed. When someone's firewood ran low, neighbors shared. When someone fell ill, others cared for them. Children were taught survival skills from the earliest age, not through formal lessons but through participation. A 3-year-old helped gather small sticks. A 6-year-old learned to tend a fire. A 10-year-old could prepare hides. By the time they reached adulthood, they possessed a body of knowledge that no book could contain, knowledge earned through years of practice, correction, and repetition. Elders were not burdens. They were libraries. They remembered where the best hunting grounds were, how to predict weather, what plants cured what ailments, which routes were safe and which were deadly. Their memories were the accumulated wisdom of generations, passed down through stories, songs, and ceremonies. And stories themselves were survival tools. Around winter fires, people told tales of great hunts, of ancestors, of spirits, be of the origins of the world. These stories weren't entertainment, they were education, encoded in memorable form. They taught values, reinforced social bonds, and reminded everyone why they endured the cold together. Science has recently discovered something remarkable. People who grow up in extreme cold don't just adapt culturally, they adapt biologically. Studies of traditional Inuit populations have found that they experience cold differently than people from temperate climates. Their extremities, hands and feet, stay warmer in cold conditions because of enhanced blood flow. Their metabolic rates are higher, generating more internal heat. Their bodies are better at shunting warm blood to the skin when needed, then pulling it back to the core. This isn't genetic destiny, it's developmental adaptation. Bodies raised in cold become more efficient at handling cold. Children who spend winters sleeping in teepees, who learn to handle frozen materials, who spend hours outside in sub-zero temperatures, develop physiological responses that outsiders never acquire. It's a reminder that human beings are not fixed machines. We are adaptable, malleable, capable of changing our own biology through the lives we live. The cold didn't defeat these peoples because they became, in a very real sense, people of the cold. The cold is not an enemy. It is a fact. It is a condition to be met, adapted to, survived, and even, in its way, enjoyed. The people of the northern winters didn't dread the snow. They welcomed it because snow meant easier tracking, preserved meat, frozen rivers that became highways. Winter was not a time of scarcity, but of plenty, if you knew how to read the landscape. We think of survival as technology. Better gear, more advanced materials, higher tech fabrics. But the real technology was never in the things. It was in the minds, the observation, the patience, the willingness to learn from those who came before and to pass that knowledge to those who would come after. The next time you see a photograph of a traditional winter camp, the teepees glowing with firelight against the endless snow, remember, that light is not just warmth. It is 10,000 years of accumulated wisdom, burning still. I'll see you in the next era.